Hello, beautiful soul family. Rebecca here, your vibe mentor. And this place is the place for conscious, purpose driven entrepreneurs who are looking to remove the blocks that hold them back from stepping into their purpose so they can manifest abundance and assist in creating heaven on earth. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Monday Magic Intuitive Energy Reading. I am excited to be here with you today. It is quite interesting energy out there. Intense is the word that wants to come through. So please do know that you are not alone in this. It is very fascinating how testing this energy is, that we are being triggered through both highs and lows in many different ways. It's a roller coaster ride. One day we can feel everything's amazing, big things are happening, big shifts are coming. Certainly, I felt that way towards the end of the week last week. And as we continue to experience an influx of solar energy and approach a full moon, and that is engaging with Mercury and Mars, it is certainly building in intensity. I believe that the full moon is tomorrow morning ish. In the US, I believe Central Time is right around 6 a.m., if I'm recalling correctly. So do make sure to check your time zones. But we are in the crunch hours. And I often find that, especially the last 24 hours before a full moon, they can be pretty intense. Of course, it depends on you personally, what's being aspected, what portion of the chart it's moving through. Some can be easier than others, just depending on you and where you're at, what you're experiencing, and what your personal chart looks like. What's interesting is the full moon is technically in Virgo, but that also means that the sun and moon being opposite each other also is incorporating Pisces. Pisces is opposite Virgo. So what I'm sensing in it, it's explained by this engagement with also being in Pisces, is that 12th house energy. It's an interesting feeling of sort of all the shadows being pulled up, right? All of those things that trigger you, all of the testing that is necessary to see what's left, what do we need to work on, what needs to be healed, is sort of being brought to the fore. And it can feel shadowy, it can feel dark, it can feel heavy, and then it can also feel dreamy and amazing and awesome. And so it's sort of that ebb and flow. I would say the last 24, 48 hours have felt on the heavier side for me personally. But still yet there's a knowing, there's heaviness, but it's not unhappiness. It's not fear or worry or anxiety. It's just density, it's intensity. And it's interesting how that can also be coupled with sort of the positive momentum and knowing the good things are coming, big things are just around the corner, and still yet have that sort of finger in the light socket type feel. That, of course, I usually reserve for an explanation around eclipse season, which we don't have an eclipse coming until April 20th. But with all of these shifts and changes that are happening in March leading us up to eclipse season, it's starting to feel that way already. It's very interesting. And you can start to see or feel the impacts of an eclipse up to 6 weeks before it. So we're kind of nearing that time anyways. But with Saturn changing signs literally 1 hour after the full moon is exact, that's pretty big. And we also have Pluto changing signs this month. We have Mars finally leaving Gemini, has been in Gemini for, I think, 5 or 6 months. There's quite a bit of change and quite a bit of momentum and quite a bit of movement. We've been in all planets direct for a while, and we will through early April, I believe. But it's interesting how this is already starting to feel extremely intense, as if it were eclipse season. So I could see where logically it would make sense with all of these shifts and changes. It's going to kind of bleed into that eclipse feeling. It's interesting because this is the 6th full moon at 16 degrees. So we've had 6 in a row at 16 degrees, which means both the sun and the moon are at 16 degrees in their respective signs. Now, when you numerologically add 6 to 1, you get a 7. So we're starting to see a 7 code here. So we've had 6 full moons, so that's 6 sevens in a row. And then we also have Mercury at 7 degrees at the time of this full moon. So there's a lot of sevens at play here. And you look at, what does 7 mean? 7 is, 7 days of the week. That there were the 7 original planets. 7 is the number that's associated with spirit, or the Holy Spirit, or God, or the divine. And there's a strong sense that, ooh, spirit is at work. Things are happening, things are being turned over. I'm seeing sort of like a till that is just churning up all of the crap and bringing it all to the surface so that we can heal, purge, release, move through, and build something new. It's an interesting feeling of sort of wiping out all that is old and decayed and dead, so that we can build heaven on earth. And that is a very interesting connection if you think about spirit and the internal processes of purging and releasing, and how that's connected to the 12th house. And with Pisces in the 12th house, it's a very internal process, all of the things that we're cleaning up and working with. And you also add to that with Saturn and Pluto both at the end degrees of their respective signs. They're at that 29th degree. Again, it's kind of the 12th house. It's the end. It's the very last degree, the very last house, the very last bits of purging and healing and releasing. Sometimes those can be the most difficult to move through because of the cognitive dissonance of not looking at it for so long. We have allowed it to stay there, and it has festered the most. And so those can be the ones that we have ignored or denied or rejected or avoided the most. And I'm not suggesting to anyone that this has to be difficult or painful, but don't be surprised if some of the more challenging aspects, the more challenging tasks at hand are prevalent right now. One big theme that I'm noticing in the way that my soul, spirit, higher self is encouraging me to move through this or to work with this is very much from a place of trust and reassurance. That I'm hearing a lot of just very consistent, all is well, everything's okay, you're right where you need to be. That thing that you did or you didn't do yesterday is okay, it's perfect, it's right where you needed to go, or exactly the thing you needed to do or not do, right? If you slept more than you normally would, that's perfect, that's great, you needed the rest, right? Trusting yourself, trusting your body, trusting the process, trusting the divine, that everything is exactly as it should be and everything is perfectly fine. All is well, you are fully supported, there is nothing to worry about. There are no problems. There's nothing is a problem. No one is a problem. No thing is a problem. You are not a problem. The situation is not a problem. It's all perfect. And remembering to trust our connection to the divine mind. That our mind, our thoughts, and of course discernment is necessary here, because the heaviness, the darkness, the density also works through your thoughts. But when you've cultivated that high level of discernment, you understand that the thoughts, the inspiration, the reassurance, the love, the compassion, the kindness, the empathy that comes through your mind is coming from the divine mind, because you are intimately one with your creator. And so remembering and trusting, remembering to trust your connection to the divine mind. We, like I mentioned earlier briefly, we've had a lot of solar activity. I think there was an X class on March 3rd. Happy 3/3 portal, by the way. That was a very strong day. And then 5 M class solar flares since then. So again, a lot of solar activity that's leading up to all of these shifts and changes on top of the full moon. So there's just no lack of input or intensity or new energies to integrate. My daughters and I, driving yesterday morning, right around 10 a.m. Central Time, it hit me, and then my daughter in the back seat said it. All right, I sort of felt this turnover in my stomach, and I was like, oh well, I took my multivitamin on an relatively empty stomach. Maybe that's why. And so I felt a little bit of nauseous. And then my daughter was like, my tummy hurts. And then my other daughter, me too. And so that really stood out as being more than just my multivitamin, right? That we had hit some sort of, for whatever reason, intuitively, I felt like we drove through something. And so nausea continued for my daughter for most of the weekend. And my body, needing a little extra rest, feeling the stress and the pressure of just all of this new influx of energy. So just integrating, a lot of integrating, a lot of perspective shifts around, things that may have seemed like a problem, or now all of a sudden you see it in a new way, and it's like, that's not as much of an issue as I thought it was. I will say, externally, I noticed people around me really experiencing high levels of frustration and anxiety, aggression, aggravation. I noticed I needed a lot more water. I was dehydrated, unusually so. And so this, heavy influx of energy, and also dealing with the energies of other people around who are aggravated or frustrated, has suggested a need for grounding, for salt, for rest. Today, especially, I feel unusually tired, which is interesting. But 2 nights ago, I couldn't sleep. In fact, for 2 nights, I couldn't sleep up until today, which partially is likely contributing to the fatigue today, which is interesting because usually the night before a full moon, that's where I feel the most awake and unable to sleep. But because likely with the added solar energies and not being able to sleep, some fatigue is hitting as well. Also kind of felt like a cold was hitting, a little scratchiness, maybe some congestion, but it was so mild. It was, within the first few moments of waking, and yet it dissipates, and it's not a cold. There's nothing there. So interesting how, the body works through things. I've noticed heart palpitations a couple times, where it's just all of a sudden my heart is pounding out of my chest for no reason. And I do find that that is usually commonly associated with an X class or high solar flares. In general, we've had pretty consistent solar activity, even though the K index is still around a 3-4. That's higher than normal, and it's been consistently higher than normal for about 3 or 4 days now. And so it's not, a KP5 or 6, which would be, red on the charts. It's still just green bars, which is in that 3-4 range, but that's still a lot more. It's more for the amount of time that we have had this extended activity. So just know that the body is processing more, it's dealing with more. I did also notice a lot of distraction. It was very difficult to focus. I had a big deadline this weekend, and man, my mind wanted to think about everything else but the thing I needed to do. So that was definitely stood out as very unusual. Some suggestions on how to handle this: I would say reduce your inputs. So just knowing that the body is receiving, the mind is receiving a lot right now. And so any chance we can get to reduce inputs can be very helpful. The guidance was very strong: less screen time, less phone time, put the phone away. This has been a very strong theme that's coming through lately. Plug it in the other room. I'm not sure if you know, but the electromagnetic frequencies that come through your phone are amplified when you plug your phone in. You do not want to be around a device that is plugged in particular a Wi-Fi device or a phone like that. So I have my laptop pushed away from me and use an external monitor so that the device is farther from me, as far as I can get. And then, of course, my phone goes in the living room at night. That really can be helpful too, because it asks you, it forces you, it causes you to have to go to sleep without that distraction, that noise, the sound. For a long time, I wanted to listen to, soft, soothing music while I went to sleep. Well, that's great, but the device is far more detrimental. And so even just that time that you spend 10, 15, 20 minutes falling asleep can be very meditative. Focusing on gratitude is an excellent way to end the day and to ground your energy in a really solid, positive place before lifting off into sleep, right? So it was very, very adamant to put the phone in a different room, put it far away from you. When I say less input, it's less electromagnetic frequencies for your body to have to process and deal with while it's trying to heal and grow and repair in your sleep, right? The next thing was more sleep, sleep more, as much rest as you can get, better rest. Taking magnesium before bed can be very helpful for improving the quality of your sleep. I take quite a bit of magnesium before bed. Just remember to take it easy. Less input means less. You're doing less taxing activities. You are asking less of your mind and body, right? Give yourself grace, right? Slow down, take it easy, be kind, compassionate, reassuring, supportive of yourself. And if that's difficult for you, I love the exercise of imagining your best friend or a baby or your pet, someone that you really, really care about, and imagine how would you talk to them? If they were struggling, what would you say to them? And what reassurance and a vote of confidence would you offer them? And then turn around and offer that to yourself. We need to be our own source of comfort and healing in those moments, especially when we are alone or we don't have others to support us. We really need to step up the self-care and be supportive of ourselves. Right. So that's all I have for you today. I know that's not the best news, but ideally 3 days after a full moon, we usually see a lifting of the energy. Things get a little bit easier. You might go through a little bit of fatigue and then feel regenerated. So ideally, hopefully we'll get that break in a couple days. Sending you guys lots of love, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next video. If you need support, please do jump into the New Earth Construction team. We are constantly talking about what's everybody feeling? How's it going for you? What is working for you? What's not? And how can we assist in supporting you? So we would love to see you there. Otherwise, make sure you like, subscribe, and share if you know of anybody that could benefit.